You're listening to Men of Abundance, episode 175, with Aaron Keith Hawkins. And today our conversation is about Unbreakable Success.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
What is going on in your world today, Men of Abundance? I am Wally Carmichael, your founder and host of the Men of Abundance podcast. And today we have another amazing conversation with yet another dynamic feature guest, Aaron Keith Hawkins. Wait until you hear this one. You're going to get a lot out of it. And as usual, I have just a few announcements before we get started here. Number one, I want to give all of you the opportunity to be abundant in your life today by simply paying it forward and sharing Men of Abundance with everyone you come in contact with, or at least the ones you love. There are people in your circles right now that are not telling you the issues in their life. And we bring up many life issues throughout all of these conversations that you are getting something out of, therefore others are going to get something out of as well. Just share it. Just say, hey, have you ever heard of Men of Abundance? They have some amazing conversations on there about living an amazing life of abundance and paying it forward to even live a further, even stronger, even better life of abundance. Something like that. Just throw it out there. Or grab their phone, go to iTunes, subscribe them on Men of Abundance, and let the episodes download. Let them listen to it at their leisure. They are going to thank you for it. Then if you want to take your paying it forward and being even more abundant in your life today, go to menofabundance.com. Underneath the podcast player of any of the episodes, you're going to see an iTunes and a share or leave a review button. Click on one of those. It'll take you right to iTunes where you can leave a rating and review that is extremely important for downloads so more people can find Men of Abundance. And I really enjoy reading through the reviews, not just to boost my own ego, but just so that I know that I'm actually reaching people in the right way and you're actually getting something out of these conversations. That's just one gauge that I use to ensure that I'm making the impact that I intend to be. And it's only going to take you a minute or two if you just put a little bit of thought in it. For instance, here's one of the latest reviews that was left. The title is Honest and Applicable, 5 stars, by Kid McCoy. Wally has a great way of pulling out the marrow of each guest and not just talking about the outside appearances of success. This enables the listener to relate and ultimately benefit. Kid McCoy, I greatly appreciate that review, man. It really means a lot to me, and yes, this was helpful. Now it's your turn. Go click on the iTunes or the leave a review button under one of the podcast players and leave your rating and review. All right, one last announcement before I introduce you to our featured guest today, and that is men. If you are not a member of the Men of Abundance community, I highly encourage you to just go to menofabundance.com, click on the top of where it says Members Only, and get access to our Members Only community on Facebook, where I have Facebook Live videos just about every single morning, and we are having conversations in there and helping each other out in our daily issues, talking about our wins, talking about the challenges that we have, and we're all helping each other through these issues that we have. Look, we have to have these conversations, and I know you may have a hard time talking to your circle, the guys you grew up with or the guys you work with. Get in this community. Talk to all of us. Let's have a conversation. Even if you want to contact me one-on-one and you're considering that you may need some coaching, then I would be honored to be considered, even just considered as your coach. And if that does interest you, then request a 30-minute discovery call with me to see what coaching is about, what I'm about, how I may be able to help you. And at the end of the call, we are going to make a decision if it's good for us to move forward or not. So in order to do that, just go to menofabundance.com. At the top of the page, click on coaching, or menofabundance.com/coaching, and request a 30-minute discovery call with me. You'll have to fill out a little form so I know a little bit about you. That way we can just get right into it. And either way, whether you want to coach with me or not, go to menofabundance.com, click on the Members Only tab, and get access to our Men of Abundance community. I look forward to seeing you in there. All right, let's bring out our featured guest. Aaron Keith Hawkins is a personal performance coach, podcast host, and online trainer. After a brush with mortality in 2009, he's dedicated his life to a mission of helping others create a lifestyle of success by increasing their awareness of the thoughts and actions creating their results in business and life. His mission is to help you recognize that your capability of succeeding in literally every aspect of your life once you realize success is an identity, not a trophy. Aaron's podcast, Unbreakable Success, has been featured in iTunes' New and Noteworthy category and continuously offers free training and interviews with expert thought leaders to help you claim your gift of continuously improving life. Men of Abundance, it is my honor to introduce you to Aaron Keith Hawkins. Aaron, welcome to Men of Abundance, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing excellent, Wally. How you doing?
Man, I'm fabulous. As we were talking pre-show, it seems like a Monday. I spilled coffee everywhere, and it like exploded all over my desk. But you know what? I'm still in paradise. I'm not being shot at. I get to sleep in a warm bed. No worries, man.
Absolutely. That's what makes life fun, isn't it?
Exactly. And of course, that had to happen like just before I was getting on the line with you. Actually, before I normally send like a 10-minute warning or type of thing. Are you ready?
Yep.
Didn't even have a chance to do that, man. You started calling me, Skyping me, making sure I was still alive. I appreciate that.
I was worried about you, man.
I know, and I appreciate it. That's how friends do, man. We look after each other.
Absolutely.
All right. So where you at in the world, man?
I'm over here in New Jersey, grinning and bearing it at the little bit of snow we've been getting this week, but we're doing really good over here.
Ooh, yeah, I'll tell you what, you're not going to really care a whole lot, but it's kind of chilly over here in Hawaii for me.
I'm not even going to ask.
I know. I know. I don't even know why I brought it up. It's just cruel and unusual punishment, man. But, I like to start the show out with an attitude of gratitude, and this is a perfect time to do that. What are you grateful for today, Aaron?
I have to tell you, Wally, two things popped at the forefront of my mind. One is doing what I do because it allows me to connect with people like you that are building these platforms to share with audiences and really impact people's lives. And then if I turn the lens back home, I'm just amazingly thankful for my family. My wife and my daughter, I couldn't be happier or more humbled by the people I get to share my life with day to day. So I got to see my wife and daughter are at the top of my list when I wake up in the morning. So I'm very blessed.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. So here's the question. How would you describe yourself?
Wow. Wally, I love this question because it's one of those things that we don't, as people, I don't think we do it much. We describe a lot of things, but looking at ourselves as something interesting. I think in moments where if I'm going to describe myself, honestly, I feel like I would describe myself. I don't know how accurately other people would say, but if I described myself, I kind of feel like a very curious being right now in a series of contrasts. And I only say that because if you kind of looked at my resume, like a traditional resume, it's not the person that most people would conjure up in their mind if they looked at it. I got 23 years of law enforcement experience, 15 years on the SWAT team, and FBI National Academy, like all these tough guy accolades. And that is so not me. I'm just a regular kind of humble dude. And so contrast is what comes to mind when I think of describing myself. I feel like I'm somebody that loves to learn a lot, but every time I learn something, I realize that there's way more to learn. Over the years, I feel like I'm somebody who's become more confident as a person, but at the same time, I feel like I keep getting more and more humbled. So it's what I love about life, and I love about doing what I do is to live into the hot and cold and happy and sad contrast that life gives us. So definitely a curious guy who's full of contrast. That's probably how I would describe me at the moment.
Sounds like an amazing person to me, man.
I appreciate it.
You know, the whole thing about curiosity, that's where I just think, and I know this for a fact, actually, curious people are some of the most amazing people in the world because, one, curious people, we build things. I see myself as a curious person as well. I'm just so curious. That's why I've been a people watcher since I was a teenager. I used to go to the mall and I used to just watch people. And I like to do it now, but I'm older and it's just kind of creepy. So I gotta be careful with that.
Gotta find that balance, man.
Yeah, and living here, you know, driving down the hill and being in Waikiki in just a few minutes, there's so many amazing people just to watch and watch their mannerisms and how they interact and stuff. But, you know, curious people, even taking it on a personal note, you know, having a conversation with somebody, a curious person will always be curious about the other person. And, you know, they always say things like, we talk a lot about marketing and stuff on here as well, but people say if you want to attract people, you got to be curious, you got to be interested, not interesting.
Yes.
Because people,
Absolutely.
you know, and by doing that, you got to be curious. You got to sincerely be curious about the other person, what they do, how they interact with people. And I just absolutely love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree.
And I dig that, you know, you was on the police force, SWAT, all that stuff, because the dynamics of really being a part of a team like that is just so unbelievable. And it's even more remarkable that you brought that up because I recently went through a course. It's not really a course. It's more of an experience with the Arbinger Institute.
Okay.
And they had a scenario on there about a guy who was SWAT, and he was just the roughest, toughest, meanest individual. Even his team had a hard time approaching him. And they had multiple lawsuits because they would just go in like rangers and just tear the place up to get after who they were trying to get after. And like I said, they had multiple lawsuits. And when they went through this, he went through this Arbinger training, how to basically be curious about people and see people as people instead of seeing them as objects. I'm not going to get into the whole dynamics of it, but that was 6 years ago. And since then, they have had 0 lawsuits. Their productivity went up dramatically.
Beautiful.
And it's not as much about the training in itself and the experience in the Arbinger Institute in itself. It's more about seeing people as people, being curious about what their needs are. And it really, really makes a difference in our interactions and our communication.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of those things where I was extremely fortunate to work where I work and have the group of people around me that I did, because we, you know, our leader, and I started doing that when I was young. I think I was maybe 24 when I first joined the tactical team, and we had a team leader that made it very clear what our mission was. And he said, you know, we're part of the SWAT team now, and most people think of us as this, you know, tough, kicking the door and you know, taking lives into our hands type of organization. He said, we're absolutely not. He said, we have one goal. He said, our goal is a life-saving group of men. He said, we're a life-saving organization. And that context, like that, it was kind of branded on our foreheads that our job, regardless of where we were going and for what reason, was to save lives and protect people. And that made a big difference when it came to the culture of who we were and how we went about doing business. And you know, it kind of brings us back to curiosity. How we started this conversation is we're a bunch of curious guys. I mean, we're a bunch of thinkers, lighthearted, fun-loving guys who really, you know, we had a lot of strong admiration and respect for each other. And I think that's what made us so successful in what we did.
Yeah, absolutely. And being in that line of work, you know, I always bring up this kick in the gut moment. And, you know, some people have a kick in the gut moment as a personal thing, but some people have occupations that just create kick in the gut moments. That's just kind of what they do. It's built into it, you know. But whether it's on that regard or on a personal side, I'd love for you to share one of your kick in the gut moments and really make us feel that.
You know, I could go two ways with this. I could go to the professional route, but if I'm really going to be honest about something that kicked me in the gut and knocked me to my knees, it has to be when I lost my dad, and that was when it was 1994, January 7th. I was 21 years old, and you know, and I'm sure everyone listening has had their own experience with loss, whether it was, you know, the death of somebody they loved or a job or a girlfriend or something, but you know, that was the first time in my life where something that was in my mind, something that was a part of, like, physically who I was gone. And my dad, to me, we had one of those relationships where he was everything. Like, if I had a question, it was almost to the point where I didn't even come up with an answer. I just went and asked Dad, and he would know what to do, what to say, how to figure it out. And he had way more confidence in me than I had. And when he was gone, I initially felt completely and literally lost, because I'd just gotten out of the Navy, and it was before I started my career in law enforcement. So I was kind of like in that space at that age where I didn't even know what I was going to be doing for the rest of my life. And then for him to disappear in the midst of that time of transition for me anyway, man, I just felt like a ship without a rudder. I was just going in circles. But in hindsight, fortunately, he had instilled a foundation in me that it kind of didn't kick in right away. It took some time for me to get myself in gear and figure things out. But it turned, that feeling of loss turned into a feeling of gratitude relatively quickly, because I realized just how important he was and how fortunate I'd been to have somebody like that is still there in my head, 20 some odd years later. As a grown man who has his own family now, and it's definitely when I think of it now, it's complete gratitude that I had him in my life. So, but that took me to my knees, man. That really took me out for a while.
Yeah, that's one harsh reality that we all have to deal with, and we know it's always going to happen. None of us are getting out of this alive, but we just really, really it sucks to lose somebody like that. And it's so painful. And then even years later, because I've been through that as well with both my parents and at an early age. So it's tough. It's just hard to deal with, especially during certain times of year and during times, when they actually passed and hear a certain song. But it's always that bass that brings you back to, what they put in you in your mind before they left us. So just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely feel that one, man. It's personal for me too. Absolutely. So, man, I was introduced to you. Goodness, I don't even remember who. I
think it was Brian, wasn't it?
It was Brian. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And actually, he introduced me to a lot of people, and I get a lot of introductions and connections. I'm always talking about the importance of connections and connecting people, but I started listening to Unbreakable Success, and man, I'm digging it. It's
I appreciate that,
really
man.
amazing stuff, man. You got a podcast called Unbreakable Success, and I love the title to begin with, and the art is just it just catches your eye right away as soon as you see it. But let's talk about, how did that get started? Where did that all come from?
Wow, that was I have to say, that was something, and thank you first of all for listening to the show, and coming from you, somebody, how it is when you really get some accolades from somebody whose work you admire. I really am humbled and appreciative of your feedback, and that started for me back in 2009. As I said, I've been a police officer for years. I'm a captain now at the tail end of my career. But back in 2009, I wasn't yet. And I was not into personal growth or really into, these mindset things and these discussions that you and I have on a regular basis now. I was just, regular guy, went to work, came home, had a family, and had a lot to be thankful for. But I wasn't in a place where I felt like I was doing things outside of the norm. I was on the rails, so to speak. And I woke up, it was actually this time of year, it was December of 2009, and I woke up in the middle of the night, about 1:30 in the morning, and I had this massive, massive pain in my chest. I was 36 years old. And I literally woke up clutching my chest. And I'd been a trained EMT for about 13 years at that point. So I started self-diagnosing. I had the pain radiating down my arm. The pain on a 1 to 10 scale was about a 12 and a half. And, it jarred me. And my wife was sleeping next to me. Our daughter was down the hall sleeping. So I stood up and did what us men like to do. I tried to walk it off, and that wasn't working. So very quickly I realized that I had a decision to make, because if I didn't do anything and I didn't wake up my wife, I knew there was a chance that if this was it, if I actually was having a heart attack, I realized that they were going to find me in the morning. And that scared the heck out of me. So I woke my wife up, said, "Babe, you got to call 911. I think I'm having a heart attack." And she jumped out of bed like a bolt and just looked at me and she said, "Are you sure?" And I'm holding my chest and I just nodded to her and I said, "Yeah." And as soon as I said yes, it felt like there was a knob on my back that said energy, and somebody took that dial and just turned it way down, and I collapsed at the foot of the bed. And I couldn't move. I could hear, but I could hear only like when you're underwater in a pool, and all you hear is those muffled sounds. Mm-hmm. And my vision closed off. It was like, I remember it was like a curtain on a stage when the curtains are closing. And I remember thinking, holy crap, I can't believe this is it. Like, this can't be it. And what was shocking about the moment was that I didn't feel, I 100% believed that I was checking out, but I didn't have any fear. And instead, I wound up getting hit with this other sensation that I didn't expect in a moment like that. And it was an overwhelming sense of regret. I mean, like a Mack truck, this wave of regret hit me like crazy. And I had plenty to be thankful for. I had and still have an amazing wife, beautiful, healthy daughter, great career, great friends, a really good social circle. But I realized instantly that I had just been coasting, that I was just taking what came to me easily. I wasn't pushing myself to do anything except settle for doing what the average person does and just trying to fit in. And that was it. And man, that really, the pain of realizing that I had just coasted and settled, and was my only goal really when it came down to it was to fit in and kind of do what the average person does. That hurt like way more than the pain in my chest. And, from that moment, I wound up getting taken in the hospital, and I spent a couple days in the hospital, and they ran all kinds of tests. Didn't have a heart attack, but they thought I may have had a stroke. Good thing is, long story short, I wound up being fine. But I knew something had changed, like completely changed. Like when I realized that I had a second chance, that I was going to make it, and I certainly couldn't shake that feeling of regret that I had. I was like, man, this is it. And that started what's now, going on a decade long journey of tapping into trying to figure out why, a good guy like me and good people all over the world can just settle in and coast and really not try to do anything more than what's expected of them. And that became an obsession of mine. I had to understand why we do what we do. Why don't we attempt to do more than what the people around us do? And how do we actually create a life that we want versus settling for the life that we think was quote unquote destined for us, or, settle for fate, as some people call it. Mm-hmm. And, from there, that led me, that led to a multi-year process of me educating myself, both in traditional means. Like I went back and finished my undergrad and grad school, and I started studying a lot of personal development, neuroscience, leadership, human behavior. And that ultimately led me to realizing that I needed to teach. I needed to teach what I was learning, because there was really no point in me learning all that stuff for myself and just kind of bottling it up. And even in my police career, I knew that in my traditional career, one of the things I loved more than anything else was teaching. So when I learned all these things I was learning personally, it just became natural, and that evolved me into launching my own website and deciding ultimately to start this podcast, which was way out of my wheelhouse. Like it is not. It was
I can relate.
The fact that I was doing something like that was completely laughable to me. Like like it was just like, I remember thinking I remember the day I launched my website and I had my finger on the mouse to make it live, and I was just saying to myself, what the heck do you think you're doing, dude? Like, you're just a cop. You're just a regular dude and a cop. Like, who do you think you are to do something this bold and actually act like you have something else to say other than your title and what you do? And I hit click, and, it's been a wild ride since then, but it's been one of the best decisions of my life, definitely.
How long has it been since you launched the site?
The site it's probably been, where are we at, 2017 now at the end of it. The site itself has probably been 4 years, and the podcast has been 2.
Okay.
And it's been a learning process.
Yeah, it's a beautiful,
for
beautiful
sure.
site. It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. It's been I should have taken some screenshots of the initial one, because
I was going to say, because I know it didn't look like this when you first got started.
Oh my gosh!
This is 4 years of progress right here.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. So it's been fun. It's been amazing. It's been great, not just for me, but for my family, for some peers who definitely gave me a whole bunch of elbowing and chuckles and busted my chops for a lot, but ultimately in quiet moments thanking me and giving me kudos for being so bold. So it's been good. It really has been good.
Yeah, that's important. I'm glad you brought that up about your buddies chuckling and kind of running you up a little bit, because guys tend to do that. I'm saying, my environment of upbringing is completely different from what I am now, who I am today, and what I do. And same thing with the military. Even when I went to be an equal opportunity advisor in the Army for a couple of generals, my peers that I grew up with were like, "Wait a minute, you're doing what? Do they know who you are?" type of thing. It's like, hey man, we all learn and grow. So yeah, absolutely wonderful, man. I love it. So obviously that was going to be one of my next questions, was which came first, the podcast or the coaching? But obviously you built the site for the teaching and coaching side, is right?
For sure. Yes, absolutely.
So how did that all, based on your coaching, so you've been doing this for about 4 years, I would love to hear some good news stories from what you've been able to do and who specifically you work with.
Yeah, it's funny. When I started the site itself, the first thing I did, I just started writing. Like I just had some stories in my head, some lessons in my head that I just had to get out, and that's how it started. And then for there, I started listening to some, just a handful of podcasts, like I think Lewis Howes had started up by then, Brendan Bouchard, guys like that, and that's what sparked my desire to do the podcast thing. And then the coaching, I didn't realize it at the time when I started my website, but I was ultimately going to become what's considered an online entrepreneur, selling info service products and things like that. So when I started the podcast, I started gearing it towards those with an entrepreneurial spirit. Even though, and I'm sure you realize, a lot of people out there that connect with the entrepreneurial spirit and those podcasts geared toward that, they're still working their 9-to-5s, but they want to build something beyond the traditional workplace. So when it comes to coaching, I love coaching people who, ideally, my perfect coaches are entrepreneurs who are not the online marketing kind of spammy, let's take pictures in front of our Lamborghinis type, but just the entrepreneurs who have a mission behind them. People like you, Wally, who are interested in starting a business for the purpose of creating impact and creating a life while creating a life they can enjoy. So impact-minded, growth-minded entrepreneurs are my ideal clients. And as far as good news stories, man, I got to go selfish and say that my best good news story is that my wife and I, we celebrated our 21st anniversary recently, about a month ago. And it's funny how this weird journey that I'd taken, and we both know this kind of the pivotal moment was when I had that collapse, literally in the bedroom. And since then, we've both, without being overtly like mapping out, hey, we need to grow as individuals and together, it's just happened organically. Like I don't teach or coach my wife, and she doesn't coach me, and I don't have these lesson moments with my daughter, but we've grown so much because, and it's really taught me a lot about the power of influence. It's that we don't have to jam things down each other's throat as far as what you must learn and must do and must say. You don't have to be so direct to impact people. And it's one of the biggest lessons I learned about influence is that we're always influencing each other. So, as I was learning things and would implement it within myself, it would affect my wife, and then that would affect my daughter, and then our daughter would affect us. And I've watched this amazing cycle where when each one of us have our down moments, the next one picks us up and reminds us of who we are. And I'll tell you, one of the best teachers in this house is our daughter. Like when she sees either of us, getting out of hand or getting overly frustrated about something, she's 11 years old, but she'll walk in like a wise old soul and give us a quick 10-second lesson of something that she's learned from us. And man, you want to talk about humble pie. But it's amazing to see that happen within your own home. And I could tell plenty of stories about people that I coach and how how they've thanked me or have been impacted. But there's nothing more humbling than realizing that we're always going to need coaching ourselves. And if we as individuals make it our mission to constantly be learning and constantly influencing the people around us, the impact that has on the people you love the most is priceless, is absolutely priceless. So that's the good news story is that when, you as a listener are listening to shows like this with Wally and you're learning the things you learn, it's not just benefiting you. Like you are going to rub off on everybody around you and you're going to see it. You're going to see the change. And it's an amazing thing.
It truly is. I truly, truly believe everybody should have a coach. I will always have a coach for something in my life, if not two or three. And what you said there is so profound. And I want the guys to really kind of we're going to go a little bit deeper and kind of understand why this is happening and why that was such an impact on your wife and your daughter, because we can only change one person, and that's ourselves. How we interact with people, and as I was talking about earlier, as we start seeing people as people instead of objects, and there are times when you can start seeing your family as objects, as vehicles, as not as the people that we know and love. And there's many scenarios about that we won't really get into right now. Just know this is some of the stuff that I talk about, and I run people through in my coaching. But once you start changing your mindset, and the mindset is the base, once you start changing your mindset and how you interact with people and see them, they ultimately, usually come into play. It just follows suit right into that. And it's amazing. Absolutely. You'll see it happen like immediately. You'll notice their demeanor towards you change completely. The other thing that I really like that you said, and I don't think I've ever personally thought of it this way, but it's a perfect fit for Men of Abundance, and that is the entrepreneur spirit.
Yes.
Because, and you said it, many of the folks that are have the entrepreneur spirit, they still work a 9 to 5. They still work a job, but their entrepreneurial spirit either in that position, in that job, or even, they're kind of enterprising out. They're building their own thing on the side or something. And I love that term, the entrepreneur spirit. I'm going to use it, and I'll give you credit twice, and then it's all mine.
That sounds fair.
But it truly does fit what we're doing here with the Men of Abundance, because not everybody you don't have to be an entrepreneur to enjoy this abundant lifestyle and to have the abundant mindset. You can learn to love the job that you have now.
Yeah, that is so true. I have to be honest. I mean, some of the best entrepreneurial minds that I've had the pleasure of working with have been people in traditional, 9-to-5 careers getting a check from somewhere else, but they just have this spirit and demand for creation and building something new, even though they're employed by someone. And that's really what that spirit's about, is the creative aspect of it, and what can we build that isn't already here.
Yeah. And a couple of real world examples that I can think of in that is like a man who wants to bring more people into his church, or even put a men's group together in his church, or build some sort of a program for the neighborhood watch program, something that'll be a little bit more effective. I mean, those are the type of mindsets that we need in our world. And those are the type of people, quite frankly, that build our world, that build the world around us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Man, so as usual, Aaron, we could just go on and on. I just love talking with you. But we're at the point where we're going to pay it forward. You ready to do that, man?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
So share 1 to 3 actionable steps that men of abundance can take today.
All right, I'm gonna go 3 and then 3A. It's funny. I was on a summit the other day, and the host asked me, because we were discussing coaching, and she asked what 4 of the most common mistakes that I see during the course of my career, the most common challenges, I should say, that I've seen in people's lives. And it comes down to something I teach in one of my courses, but I'll boil them down to this. I call them the 4 laws of pure success. And the first is, when it comes to actionable steps, there's 4 things we can do. Number 1 would be to make a pivotal choice. And that pivotal choice is to be 100% responsible for every single thing that you're experiencing and creating and is happening in your life. And the reason that's so important is that even if something is not yours in terms of blame, because responsibility has nothing to do with blame. The word responsible simply means that you're worthy and capable of responding to it. And if we own the fact that we're worthy and capable of responding to everything that happens, then that gives us the power to change our life regardless of what is happening. The second would be unconditionally high standards. We've all heard talk about, maintaining high standards and having high standards in our life is what will change our life. We hear it from Tony Robbins and a whole bunch of other people that tell us to have high standards. The problem is most of the time people get really good at doing that when things are fine. So the caveat that these things, having those high standards, meaning how do you treat your family, your wife, your spouse, how much work do you do, how hard do you work, how much focus do you have? The moments where they are most important is when you don't feel like it, or when you have what feels like a good excuse to drop your standards or not do what you're supposed to do on this day, or not treat somebody so well because, they did something that society tells us warrants not treating them in a way that's in line with our values. So making our standards unconditional as opposed to being dependent on the mood or the moment, that's life-changing. The third thing is what I call reflective comparison. All of us have these moments where we worry about who we are in comparison to somebody else in our career, somebody else in our same industry. But instead of doing that, kind of reflecting in the mirror and asking ourselves a very simple but powerful question, which is simply, what would I do? What would the unblemished and flawless version of myself do right now in this moment? And the reason that I've found that to be so powerful is that, we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to be flawless. We're never going to be free of our ego and all that stuff completely. It's always going to be there, and it's always going to be work in progress. But if we're willing to ask the question in the moment, what would I do if I didn't have these flaws? Then we have no choice but to hear the answer given back to us, which is, Wally, I'm sure you've heard this saying where people say the quality of your life will often depend on the quality of the questions that you ask. Mm-hmm. And, asking ourselves something as powerful as, what would I do if I didn't have the baggage and all these other things going on? We'll start getting those answers, which will help us make better decisions, because you can't avoid the answers that you give yourself in your own head. And finally, it's simply the last thing I would say would be to elevate what I call elevate your situational response, which means, all of us, when something happens to us, we usually do one of four things. We either do what's familiar to us, we hope, we believe, or we create something. And creating something is at the top of that tier. A lot of people do just whatever their habits are, whatever's familiar, what the people around us do. Some people hope, and hope is a wonderful thing, but sometimes people get stuck hoping in moments where they could act. And then a lot of us, especially this audience and you as listeners, there's a lot of strong believers that listen to shows like this, Wally, like a show like Men of Abundance. There's a tendency to have people who strongly believe life can get better, will get better, we can make improvements, we can have that impact. And believing is a really, really powerful tool because of the fact that it leads us to the thing that we ultimately need to be doing, and that's to create in every moment we can. So I know that's more than three, but making that choice to stay 100% responsible, having standards that are unconditional, asking ourselves what we would do in those moments of challenge if we didn't have any flaws, and then finally being willing to create something that will change your life. And I only say that because I know it has completely changed mine, each one of those things. And, that's what I'm hoping for everybody listening.
Simply amazing. I was having a hard time keeping up, taking notes, man. I'm glad this is recorded.
Yeah, hit that 30-second rewind if you need to.
Because I get the opportunity to go and edit this later. This one I won't have to edit so far, man. We're just rolling right through, and I'm loving it. So I'm telling you, I'll go through and write this down again. Then I'll listen to the finished product later and take some more notes. So awesome. Absolutely amazing, amazing information, man. So what daily habits make the biggest impact in your life, Aaron?
I'll keep that simple. Definitely waking up, and before I even hit my feet on the ground, it's challenging myself to ask it to remind myself of three things that I can be thankful for that day. And a lot of times it's the same things pop into my head, but I kind of force myself to think of something that I hadn't mentioned the day before or in a couple days, and just keeping that list of things to be grateful for in your mind. And secondly, I would say meditation. I have not been somebody that meditated. Even just a few years ago, I wasn't somebody who meditated regularly, but I'm always coaching people that we only get good at what we practice. And if we don't practice being calm, and if we don't practice listening to our own thoughts and realizing what we're actually thinking, and if we don't practice just sitting there and being able to be still without, being a slave to this kind of world of distraction that we're in at the moment, we're not going to be good at it. And if we don't practice being calm, when we need to calm down and not make a damaging decision, if we've never practiced the ability to instantly even know what it feels like to be calm, then we're not going to be good at it. So meditation, as much amazing research that there is out there about the benefits of meditation, just knowing how to be calm because you do it all the time, that's life changing, and it has been for me. So big thing is meditation for me.
Yeah, I agree with that too. What does meditation look like for you? Because there's many different types of meditation, and some people it's like woo woo, all this kind of stuff. Sit with your legs crossed on the floor with some incense or whatever. But I'd like for you to share that with me, because that's definitely not what I do.
I'm a bit of a pragmatist, and I'm glad you brought this up, because I kind of, as we were trailing off there, I was thinking, man, anybody that isn't meditating is going to be like, okay, so how do I get started? Yeah. I started out by keeping it simple, and I've just kind of stayed the course. I use an app called Infinite Abundance from Deepak Chopra. Mm-hmm. And it's just a simple app. You can set how long you want to listen to it. So look, it's as simple as this. I wake up, I sit in a chair, grab my phone, put the headphones on. I usually have it set anywhere between 10 minutes to a half hour. And you can choose a different topic of meditation for the day. There's a whole variety of them. And really, there is no right or wrong one to listen to. And it's simply, it's a couple moments of guided meditation from Mr. Chopra himself. And then there's a mantra that's introduced that you can repeat in your head if you want to or not. And then I just allow myself to just sit there. And it's funny because depending on who you talk to, some people say meditation is the opportunity to completely clear your mind of thoughts. Mm. For me, I just tend to be, a lot of times I tend to be an active meditator, meaning, I don't fight thoughts when they come into my head. I just let them pass. And what's amazing, Wally, is I usually get some of the best ideas I have or things that I want to say or topics that I want to talk about, either with a client or something I want to write or something I want to talk about on the show. It comes when I'm meditating. That's inevitably those thoughts appear. So for me, meditation for me is simply just using an app and letting the app do the work, and I just reap the benefits of it.
Some of our most valuable thoughts and some of our greatest thoughts come from a state of relaxation. That's why so many amazing ideas come when we're in the shower. And most people's thoughts and great ideas just go right down the drain, as opposed to come to fruition. So and the way I do it is, and I started out with meditation. I really just sit, and usually I'm either sitting in a chair or sitting on the bed, and just kind of really start concentrating on my breathing. I did use one app a long time ago, but I didn't care much for it. But I'll try this one out. I have heard of this one from Deepak Chopra as well.
Yeah,
I'll try it out.
It's really good.
Because I like just clearing my mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I've tried a few. This one's been, it just kind of clicked for me, and I enjoyed it, so I kept going. And I should say, I definitely, I want to say this to the listener, and that's, I don't believe there's a wrong way to have those moments of meditation or silence. Like my wife doesn't use an app like I use. Like her meditation is in the morning is she gets her cup of coffee and she sits in silence, and she may read some prayers or some some quiet positive reading or something of that sort. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's your time as an individual to find your moment of calm, and that's the most important part of it.
Yeah, bam. That's exactly, I'm right there with your wife. I get my coffee, I have it sitting right here. Yeah. And every once in a while I'll take a sip of it and just kind of just relax, just sitting quiet, And here I can never really get complete quiet because I got the birds outside the windows, but that adds to the whole the whole ambiance and everything. So
the tough life of Hawaii.
It is terrible, man. Hey, so what would you recommend our abundant leaders read or listen to, and why?
You know what? I have to go to a book I'm just finishing now from Mel Robbins, The 5-Second Rule. I love it. I don't know if you read that one yet, but Mel created the 5-second rule. And I love it because of the simplicity. And the 5-second rule in a nutshell is simply when you feel an instinct to do something that you know is good for you or to take an action, you just simply count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And before you get to 1, you need to be physically moving yourself toward that, taking that action. Because most of the time, from what she's saying, when we don't accomplish the things we want to accomplish, it's because we overthink it. So when you have an instinct to do something, what do we tend to do? Well, I would start that business, but I don't know enough. I don't this, I don't that, and you slow down. Or if you should pay that compliment to somebody, we think ourselves out of it, and then the moment is gone, and we wind up regretting it. And in so many countless different ways it happens in our lives. And really reading her, I just started reading her book a week ago, and I can't count the amount of things I did this week because I challenged myself to put her book into action. And while it may sound like that simple rule shouldn't take up an entire book, trust me, it's absolutely worth it. I can't recommend her book highly enough.
Well, I'll definitely check that out because I like that kind of stuff. I like analogies, and when you're saying that, I'm thinking about the kid on the skydive, or myself on the high dive.
Yeah.
And you walk up to the edge and you could just walk off and be done with it. But
Yeah.
no, you're going to sit there, and the more you think about it, the harder
Yes.
it gets, the more fear builds up into your mind. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, you're walking backwards down the stairs.
Yep. That's it
Not
in a
getting it
nutshell.
done.
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing. So what do you feel holds most people back from living a life of true abundance?
One would be hesitation, like we were just talking about, which is part of the reason I love Mel's book, because I throughout my life, and I've certainly improved in it, but I was somebody who hesitated or procrastinated or overthought things a lot. And aside from hesitation, I would say it's a desire to fit in. We're pack animals by nature. We like to be accepted, which is a good thing. It's great to have a tribe of people that accept you, whether it's family, friends, coworkers, peers. But I think most people hold themselves back from really living abundantly due to a fear that if they do step out there and do something different and do that what's really pulling at their heartstrings, that they're going to be rejected. They're going to lose something. They're going to lose someone. They're going to lose reputation. They're going to, their ego is going to get damaged because somebody's going to say something. What will they think? And that simple, innocent desire for acceptance can completely destroy somebody's aspirations. It really can. And it's been and still continues to be one of my biggest hurdles. Like when I reach out to a podcast or a show or talk to somebody or do something different, I get those moments, where and doesn't really cognitively, I don't think about what's happening, but you just get that sensation that you need to hesitate. That little bit of fear creeps in there. Like you wonder if it's, should I, could I, is this the right thing? But that fear of rejection and on the flip side, the desire for acceptance, it can be a dream killer.
It can. And here's the thing though, you're moving out. Let's say, for instance, with you're moving out into being a podcaster, starting this website, getting into coaching, which, evolved with your website and stuff like that. And while it was different and you were feeling a little bit of rejection, even though they were kind of joking around with it, from your peers back on a SWAT team and probably Navy and cops and all this kind of stuff. But people like myself are like, I'm waving my hands. Bring it. Come this way, over here. This is where you belong now. This is, not that you don't belong over there anymore, but the thing is I'm accepting you over this way. So when one group of people, your old peers, your peers you grew up with, are kind of going, you're doing what? Because you're trying to shift. Mm-hmm. But there's another group of people that are just hungry for what you got.
That's so important, Wally, and that's a big thing for people to realize, that whatever it is you're looking to do, there is support. There's absolutely support, so make sure you get that circle of five, as they say. People that are there to support you and doing similar things.
Exactly. Once again, just another great reason to get into the right groups, whether it's on Facebook or in person in your community, and get a coach and get somebody around you who's going to be there to support you and push you in the right direction or the direction you want to go, So what does living a life of abundance mean to you, Aaron?
The simplest way I could say that the life of abundance to me is to live a life where you are intentionally and habitually creating the situations and circumstances that are truly important to you and what you value. And second, and the two of these, in my opinion, are necessary to be truly abundant, it's helping others do the same. We all have that desire to create a life that we really want, not out of imitation or obligation or because that's what everyone else seems to be doing but right now, but really being free and learning the skills and the mindset it takes to create the things in your life that you want to experience, whether it's and across the board, from finances to relationships to your health, fitness, spirituality, and just creating it in a way that feels truly fulfilling to you, and then helping others do the same thing for themselves. When you're able to take care of yourselves, and when you're able to take care of yourself in a way that's completely sincere, and then support others care for themselves in a way that has them feel sincere and fulfilled and abundant in their life, that's when that's man, to me, that's winning. You're really winning when both of those things are going on.
Man, yeah, I love it. Absolutely love it. So listen, we're going to have AaronKeithHawkins.com linked up in the show notes at menofabundance.com in this episode. And, you know, we're going to have your podcast obviously is going to be in there. It's all on the same site. What would you like to ensure that our abundant leaders get out of our conversation that we did not talk about today?
You know what? I probably would want to hit on this. And I don't know why it's popping into my head, but, you know, for all of us, whether we realize it or not, one of the most important things that we have in our lives is our relationships. And I know there's a lot of, there's plenty of advice out there, and I do it myself. I do plenty of relationship coaching. But something we didn't bring up that I feel the urge to say is this. One of the most important things that any of us can do to make our relationships stronger, whether it's personal or professional relationships, is to take better care of ourselves. Mentally, physically, spiritually. So to you listening out there, if you get anything other than what we already talked about, it's this: please make sure you're taking care of yourself, because that's going to help you build. It's going to go a long way in helping you building the relationships that you want. Because if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're not going to be in a position to take care of someone else. So make sure you're taking time out for you to build your body, build your mind, and build yourself up spiritually. And you'll be amazed at how better equipped you feel to build those strong and fulfilling relationships. So don't know why I felt the need to say that, but I did.
Because it had to be said.
It had to be said.
Because it had to be said. That's it. And that's, you know, it was there and it had to come out. I appreciate that, man. I really do.
Sir.
So other than AaronKeithHawkins.com, how else can we get in contact with you? And, you know, we're going to throw that out there and then we'll close this up.
Yeah, that's the website's the best way to reach me, AaronKeithHawkins.com. And if anybody has a question or a comment or anything, you can always just shoot me a quick email at info at AaronKeithHawkins.com. I always respond to emails, and I even occasionally check the spam folder. So if you happen to wind up in there, I'll find it.
Yeah, I have a hard time. I forget to do that once in a while. I had some actually pretty good ones in there in my spam, so I got to do that more often too.
Yeah, there's a lot of good nuggets wind up in there for some weird reason. So I always make sure I check every once in a while.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because literally just a day or two ago I did that, and I was like, oh man, that's where that email went. I knew that guy said he sent an email. I was just waiting for it, but anyhow, I apologize for that. My bad. But Aaron, amazing conversation as I knew it would be, man. I truly appreciate your time. Now go out and live your life of abundance, brother, and just keep paying it forward.
Wally, I appreciate you, and thank you so much for having me. And it's always a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate you, my friend.
Aloha.
Aloha.
All right, guys, there you have it. Yet another impressive man doing amazing things in the world and paying it forward to all of you, paying it forward to the world and to anybody who wants to get in contact with him. And I encourage you to get in contact with Aaron or any of the other guests that you feel would be a great fit for you to have a conversation with about coaching in your life wherever you need that at. And of course, if you choose me as your coach, I would be greatly honored to do that. And once we get on our call, as I mentioned earlier, once we get on our discovery call that you can request through menofabundance.com/coaching, then we will make a determination at that point if you and I can work together so I can help you live a life of abundance in family, faith, finances, and fitness. But if at the end of the call we decide that you and I are just not a right fit, then I will not only refer you, but I will introduce you to men like Aaron so that you can finally realize your true potential. Ultimately, that's what I want for you guys. Now, go out and find your coach to live your life of abundance and always pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.